Yes, good morning and welcome. You're watching Daybreak right here on Citizen TV. It's that time when we take a look at the issues behind the headlines. This morning we're privileged to have in studio Rosa Buyu, woman representative Kisumu County, also a member of the Environment Committee.
Oh yes.
Yes, in the National Assembly. Karibu sana. And Titus Hamala, Lurambi MP.
Oh, thank you, thank
Karibu
you.
sana. Matters Sugar, you come from the sugar
Absolutely,
belt.
and I'm a farmer
These
myself.
are issues very close to your heart.
Very.
I also come from the sugar belt.
You also come from the sugar belt.
And a farmer myself.
You are a farmer yourself, yes, definitely. And that's the biggest discussion this morning, sugar politics. And where do we go from here? It's been a discussion for the last month or so. We've had this back and forth in the National Assembly. Two committees, a joint committee, trade and agriculture. Yes, probed this. Their first report was sent back. They came out with a second report. There were claims that it had been watered down, claims that some people were paid. Now the claims this time on the headlines is that members of parliament yesterday were receiving bribes just before the debate. And then the debate, the report was shut down. Headline on the Daily Nation this morning, Sugar, MPs vote to save Aidan and Rotich. On the Standard this morning, bribery claims as MPs rescue Rotich and Aidan. Now, and the question is, how did it become about the CSs? Because I think that's where the problem is. And if I may quote one of the committee, the joint committee chairman, Kanini Kega, he said that probably we're missing the point. We are focusing more on the CSs and missing out on all the recommendations because now all that has been thrown out. Yes?
Yeah, I think that point is I think that point is in line in the sense that it now became an issue of are we going to call out the cabinet secretaries or not? Mm-hmm. That became the bone of contention. So people did not actually, members did not actually take time to look at the substance in the report. Mm-hmm. So it became, let us knock it out so that we save the CSS, or let us pass it so that we hold the CSS accountable. Mm-hmm. But the gist of the report was in the substance that was in the report. Mm-hmm. And we sort of lost the debate on that.
Yes.
And focused more on whether to impeach or not to impeach, or whether to hold accountable or not hold accountable. And
that lack of focus in members of the National Assembly is a cause for concern, that because we talked over and over about committees of parliament and these probes of parliament being used to sanitize some people. Do you feel that your colleagues lost the plot in this? And this is the whole house, because I'm informed that yesterday the plenary was almost full. All the members were in the house.
Number one, Fred, we have respect for one another. We are all members of parliament, elected. We respect each other. Mm-hmm. And when we come, like we have an opportunity here, it's not an opportunity for us to castigate one another. Mm-hmm. But there comes a time when you have to take an individual stand, mm-hmm, because of those that you report to, the electorate, those who elected you. Number one, what I saw in parliament yesterday was a shame. Mm-hmm. I was seconding Honorable Osot, who had brought in amendments to the report, just like Honorable Wanga had done. But what we witnessed yesterday was mob lynching. Mm-hmm. And that mob lynching was an exhibit that there was lobbying. There was some forces behind the whole thing, because the house was so chaotic, they could not allow somebody of the contrary opinion, mm-hmm, to even move further with their opinion. And that was not right, because like myself, Lurambi constituency, we depend on sugarcane. Myself, as a person, I have 2 tractors lying idle in my home. Mm-hmm. I've been farming almost 100 acres. Today, I have about 4 or 5 acres, and I don't even have a place to deliver the sugarcane. Mm-hmm. So yesterday was a great opportunity to begin rebuilding that road to recovery, mm-hmm, of the sugar industry, where we can salvage even a little piece here and there and give our people hope. It never happened yesterday.
And does it mean that now this is all lost? Once a report is shut down like that, what happens next?
I think this is lost, but my biggest issue with all this was, so there was an alarm. There was an alert that there's mercury in sugar. There was an alert that there could be lead in the, mm-hmm, sugar. And the Kenyans were waiting because they are in a dilemma as to whether to take sugar or not to take sugar, as to whether there is indeed mercury in the sugar or not, and they needed an answer. And Kenyans also needed to know who was it that cost their lives at such a big risk. But with the report being shut down, those answers, we will never get answers to that.
Because the report was not just about the CSs.
No, it was not about the CSs. It was about the sugar, how much of it is contaminated, where is it, when did it come, who brought it in, you know, so who authorized the bringing in of such sugar, you know, so that we begin to become accountable. In this day and time, when we are busy fighting corruption, and then we muzzle a report that could actually bring out some of those corrupt deeds, because indeed, if you did bring in sugar and brought in sugar that was contaminated, and you are putting all our farmers and sugar industries at a risk of collapse, you need to be held accountable.
Yes.
But we lost all that.
Just a little input, Fred. And yesterday, the question was on the amendment of Godfrey Osotsi, the one that I was seconding. The question I had was, how much mercury do we have out there? You know, the contraband sugar. How much do we still have? Because you see, CS Rotich, they gave all these licenses to people to import, individuals, millers, and all that. And so all this thing was flooded in this country. How much do we still have out there?
Of that.
And on the amendment was, can we put a temporary embargo on the importation? We ban it for the time being, because you know what? If you know that there is Ebola coming in from somewhere through Busia, first thing is to close the border. So you want to deal on the internal, but not the external. And so with all the shouting match that was there, because remember the other day, Cleophas Malala said that we in Parliament, we are like a public rally. And I thought, hey, Cleophas, what are you saying? You know, he's my senator, and I'm his MP at home.
You experienced it yesterday.
Yesterday it was like Bohungu Stadium.
But Honorable Hamala, what were you really expecting from Parliament? Because as a farmer, your main concern was not even about the CSs. What were you really hoping for from this report?
To me, I was thinking that, you know, let us do the necessary amendments to the report. Let us put an input to it. Let us expand that we think is not very good in the report and which may have repercussions in the long term. Let us do the amendments as Honorable Wanga had come in strongly on the floor. Godfrey Osotsi, and all these amendments were admissible by the Speaker. And that is because, you see, they have spent a lot of time putting this report together. They have spent taxpayers' money putting it all together.
One of the dailies actually quotes that amount at 10 million shillings without even looking at other parliamentary stuff. This is just allowances to members of that joint committee. And 10 million shillings spent, and then you throw out the report.
President Uhuru is out to fight graft. And each one of us as a leader, we have to rally behind him to make sure that we sanitize our country. And even if we didn't take money or we didn't do that, but the thing is, when we waste the money in committees, that just is tantamount to... For
me, what I was expecting was a streamlining of importation of items like sugar. Because, for example, we had a deficit of around 300 and something tons. But then you realize that the amount of sugar that came in, officially it's stated as in the 800s.
Yes.
So already, why were we bringing more than we need? Because when you bring that surplus, that means that you're killing your sugar industries. You know, because what happens is the market is flooded with sugar, and probably we cannot compete to get our prices to be as low as that duty-free imported sugar. You know, so all the sugar industries have actually collapsed. So I thought that there'd be a streamlining and of if you are going to import sugar, you only import sugar as and when it's needed, and the quantity that is needed, and the type that is needed, so that it's not a free base like it was, you know, like an open check that anybody could actually import sugar. I would have expected that we would get to a point where the ministers would be censored, especially the Minister of Finance would be censored and be told that what he did was wrong, because what he did was give a blanket check. Anybody could import sugar, any amount, I mean any quantity and any type. You know, so and for an unstated period. So when do you begin to protect your own people?
Now let's talk about the conduct of members of the National Assembly, because that has come into question in quite a number of probes that you've conducted, various committees have conducted, in the manner in which even the interaction between the members of these committees and even the witnesses and possible suspects. Now, there are very serious allegations here. And on one of the dailies, including amounts paid out to members of the National Assembly just right before this report made it into the House. Okay, in your own opinion, what happened? Even before we get into this allegations, what happened for all this to change? Because there was expectations that members of parliament would demand some level of truth from this committee, but that did not happen. In your own analysis, what took place?
Fred, number one, you know, apart from being an MP, I'm a bishop.
Yes.
I did not receive any money. I can look you in
Who
the eye.
Who said bishops don't receive money?
No, we
Okay.
receive in our own way in the church.
Yes.
Biblically, what is in Mheshimiwa Rosa, that's how we do it. But the thing is, I didn't receive any money. Number two, I did not see anyone receiving money. But the mob lynching and that kind of chaotic, disruptive environment that was created in the House yesterday would bring aspersions. It will cast aspersions on the integrity of the House. It will exhibit some kind of advance lobbying, that something must have happened before these guys got here. Because all of a sudden, why are they chaotic and not allowing any movement?
Do you think some money changed hands? Do you think it is possible that it could happen?
We live in a world of impossibilities and possibilities.
So it is possible. In your own analysis, what happened?
Fred, I didn't see anybody receive money, and I, for one, did not get any money. But I must say that there must have been some lobbying. The extent or the nature of that lobbying, I'm not able to confirm, but I know there must have been some lobbying. And usually when there's a debate, obviously there's lobbying so that your side can win. But I'm not able to say whether anybody got any money and what amount anybody
I
got.
do understand your anxiety to discuss that issue, but now on page 6 of the Standard, this has been broken down, including verbatim of the exchanges between members of parliament when one was supposedly going to receive some money. And they're saying that another MP said some members were given 30,000 shillings, while others 20,000 shillings. Another said the money was coming from different sources. And another said when one was going to receive this money, one retorted, "Shame, how do you get 20,000 shillings yet you earn 1 million? This is really bad." And this is according to Godfrey Odanga, MP Matayos, quoted in this story. But one of the MPs retorted, "What is wrong with us getting our share? I am going." And this prompted some jeering from a colleague inside Parliament. What would you say to that?
Fred, number one,
Discussions between members of the National Assembly that yes, you're going to receive 20,000, it is shame, it is shameful, that kind of discussion.
Fred, number one, I'm sure that Mama County from Kisumu and myself, we are from the sugar belt. So if there was somebody who was going to lobby and have money, number one, they wouldn't approach us. Those MPs from Western region, those that have sugarcane at heart, no one would come and talk to us about it. So when we were going in, number one, we didn't even know that there was money. We didn't even know that there was money. We went in to do the amendments to make sure that this report resonates with the needs of our electorate. So, we may be also reading just the way you're also reading. So, I can't stand here and say so-and-so was given money, but I also told you that lobbying involves a lot. There's a lot.
And it does involve money sometimes.
It sure does.
It does.
It sure does.
Yes.
But not what I saw with my eyes, but it was very chaotic.
Did you get to hear any of this, even in as far as rumor mills?
No, I didn't, Fred.
Not at all?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
But let me say this.
Yes.
We actually lost an opportunity because what I was hoping for was that we were going to strengthen that report through amendments.
Yeah, but it clearly didn't
Yes,
happen.
because the report was like charging the relevant bodies or authorities to actually investigate certain individuals, to investigate the Minister of Finance, or to investigate the matters that they did not ought to have done but didn't do. For example, streamlining the imports, the duty-free imports, etc. And the former Minister of Agriculture, but then we thought we were going to strengthen it because we thought this is the time to bite the bullet. We are busy fighting corruption outside and taking in smaller people. So we thought this was an opportunity to actually nail it and say, so and so is accountable. Can you investigate so and so?
Do you feel let down by the parliamentary process on a matter of such great public interest? Do you feel
yes, I feel this is because sugar is a commodity that we find in all our houses, you know, and this was a matter that's so close to the hearts of all Kenyans, whether you are sugar growing or not, you know, because people consume sugar. And people just like to know that they are safe when they consume that sugar. And then I also remembered when the president addressed Parliament and requested Parliament to help him in the fight of corruption. And I think we lost that moment to also stand up and be counted that we are contributing towards that fight.
Yes.
Not by chasing people, witch hunting, but by stating facts and saying, so and so, you are in this position at this particular time, you did this, can you be investigated? You know? I think that is the way we should have gone. But unfortunately, some members did not want anybody's name, any implication of names of some people.
Yes.
And then we lost the plot.
Where does this leave Parliament in terms of investigating such issues of great public interest? Because your conduct as members of the National Assembly has been put into question now. And this was clearly, and it is glaring now. Where does that leave Parliament in standing in such issues?
And Fred, I would say that in the first place, we as members of Parliament should know that we are national leaders. We represent constituencies, but once you are elected in Parliament, you have a national function. Therefore, any matter, anything that touches on Kenyans, whether it is relevant as from your region or not. For example, I may not be very popular with tea growing in my region, but if it is something that is touching on the lives of Kenyans, we should get serious on it, regardless of whether it is profitable in my region or not. Because this going forward is putting a black shadow, a terrible shadow on the integrity of the House, and especially on investigations. And Kenyans are watching. They are thinking, what kind of people have we elected?
Should we even be optimistic when Parliament takes up any other probe going forward?
Now that is the problem.
Yes.
That is the problem, because I see, we are supposed to be representatives of the people. And when there's an issue like this, or when there's an issue causing a lot of anxiety amongst the citizenry, they expect us to help them solve it or find answers to those issues. So I think that what is going to happen is the public is going to lose faith, even when Parliament...
The public appears to have lost faith.
They will lose faith, even when representatives say, we are taking this up and we're investigating. They will get into that attitude of nothing will come out of it, you know, and then we begin to lose it. You know, like for example, I was shocked when one of our colleagues actually says he's opposing and he's throwing out that report because the former Minister of Agriculture, Mr. Bett, was not given an opportunity to defend himself or to be heard for his side of the story.
It was down to individuals.
I thought, okay, then why don't you bring an amendment to that portion, that section where you think is unfair, but don't throw the baby out with the water, you know? And because then we lose the substance of all that was in that report, just because you think that the former CES for Agriculture was not given an opportunity to defend himself. Create an amendment to sort out that issue that you have with the report, but don't throw away the whole report, because then you've thrown away everything that Kenyans would have benefited from.
Yes, Honorable Ahmala, apart from just being a member of Parliament, you're also, and you mentioned this, you're a religious leader as well. Where does this leave the National Assembly? Because there's a lot of trust placed on this representatives, 349 of you. When you collectively throw out a report of such great public interest, and we can actually see what's playing out because it's glaring here in the dailies. Do you think, as a Kenyan, that you still have faith in the National Assembly to actually conduct some of these probes?
Fred, I think, number one, if I look in your eye today, or look into the eyes of Kenyans, and I demonize Parliament, the first thing will be, why don't you leave? Why don't you walk out? Why don't you resign? But resignation is not on my table.
Yes.
Because one, we have to fight. We have to keep up the spirit. We have to do the corrections. You know, because if we despair and we still have 4 years to go before Kenyans have an opportunity to elect a new parliament, what are we going to be doing in the next 4 years? I think we just need to get serious. We have to look at matters that are of great interest to Kenyans, like this issue that we are talking about. We are talking about not just killing the sugar industry, but we are talking about the health of Kenyans.
But in the general conduct of the National Assembly, because this is not the first instance, we've just been covering headlines of people having some curious dalliances with witnesses and suspects when they're probing the same.
Number one, we have, as leaders or as members of parliament, and it even applies in the Senate or even the county assemblies. Number one, we should not be so regionalized, whereby we get into our cocoons, you know. For this cause, we have to defend our own. That one, it just makes everything
Is that
terrible.
what happened yesterday? Because I saw even
we can't rule it out.
The ODM chairman, he's one of those who opposed this report.
I'm not going to talk about that because I have strong feelings about that, and I'll just request you to allow me not to talk about it.
But because this was across the political divide, it was not a Jubilee versus NASA issue.
It even made shocked
and
me.
it's okay for him to have, and I'm sorry that we are discussing him.
No,
but we are
it
discussing
played
his
out in the
position.
public, yes.
And it's okay for him to have actually, if he really believed in it, it was okay for him to have supported the shooting down of that of the report. But I think the reasons that he gave were just not valid and did not make sense.
As a leader of minority, he must have understood that there are other ways of going around this report, probably introducing an amendment.
No, as our leader, he could have actually guided us into seeing what he saw that made him want that report thrown. But when he actually got up to say that he does not see any role that the Minister of Finance played that warrants him being mentioned in the report, I think that was crazy.
Do you feel
because
yes.
he is the one who gave the Gazette notice, and a Gazette notice that opened sugar importation to anybody, to any time and to any type. Okay. So he should have taken responsibility. Already there was a fault with that, because in the same Gazette notice, when there was when they ordered, they gave authority for powdered milk, they were actually specific, and they said the producers are the ones who are supposed to import, you know, and they had a time limit, and also said that they gave a body, I mean, whatever import they brought in was to be counter-checked by a certain body. But for sugar, there was nothing like that. So if any contaminated sugar came, that was free to go, because there was nobody to check on the quality of the sugar that was coming in, and the type of sugar that was coming in, and the quantity that was being brought in. And there was nobody to check who it was who was bringing in sugar. You could have brought, I could have brought, yes, whether you knew about sugar or never dealt in sugar. So already there was that, he needed to be held responsible, yes, for having given a blank check for sugar importation that led to this surplus and gave people an opportunity to bring in sugar that was contaminated without anybody checking.
Do you feel let down by the leader of minority?
Fred, where the minority leader, and I respect him because he's my leader, and I don't want to talk something contrary, but where, to me, my conclusion is where the minority leader was sitting, that is where Honorable Washali was supposed to sit. Because Honorable Washali, yes, despite him being the government chief whip, yes, stood up with Kenyans, and he stood up to be counted with Kenyans. He put his position online. He risked his position in the House, but to be counted with Kenyans. So yesterday, on our side, I felt let down. By the leader of minority? Absolutely. Wow.
Fred, there is no way, you know, what actually shocked me was there is no way a leader who comes from an area, and I'm talking about the bigger Nyanza region, who has seen Chemelil go down, who has seen Moroni go down, who has seen all these sugar factories go down, and when they go down with the livelihood and lives of the people. Stand up and say, I'm going to shoot down that report that is trying to protect those factories, that's trying to protect the lives of those people, that's trying to protect the livelihoods of those people. That was shocking. Yes. That was indeed very shocking.
Wow. Fred, one of the amendments we wanted to make was, one, We want to make sure that importation is only done through millers that have government shares. This issue whereby sugar barons and individuals are bringing and politicians are flooding in sugar to make quick money, because you know importation of sugar is how you make lots of money and quick money, and you kill the citizenry of Kenya. And that is what we wanted. There were great amendments from Honorable Gladys Wanga, Honorable Godfrey Osoti, but it was chaotic. It was very chaotic. And let me say this, I think we were a flock without a shepherd.
Yes. They'd also say that this report, the politics came into play, and that some people were simply being targeted because of their political stand, probably in Jubilee, which side of Jubilee they seem to be on, and probably that's why this particular CSs were mentioned, and they felt the need to defend them.
I don't think that's true, because if you're talking about sugar, there was the Minister of Trade really being talked about because of the portfolio that he's holding. There was Minister of Finance being talked about because of the portfolio he's holding. And those Minister of Agriculture, former Minister of Agriculture, again, not being talked about in his person, but because of the portfolio he's holding. And these were the key ministries that handled the sugar issue. So I don't think it was a case, unless we were bringing individuals who had no connection. But these were individuals whose portfolios or whose ministries were relevant to the sugar importation, you know?
Do you think the Jubilee, the kind of politics within Jubilee, which side do you support, the deputy president or the president? Do you think that played out in this, that one section or the other felt a need to protect these individuals?
Fred, I'm in NASA, I'm not a member of Jubilee.
But you interact with these members in the National Assembly.
I think it did. To some extent it did. Yes. To some extent it actually did. Because when we called for division, I saw some members of Jubilee also get up. And I saw some members from Central Province actually get up. And I thought, wow, that's great, you know, because people are thinking of the substance of the report as opposed to whether they're Jubilee or not. So I think that Jubilee issue also came to play. I do not know to what extent, but it did come to play. Yes,
you're saying you did not get that feeling that probably the internal politics within Jubilee played out.
You know, if you ask me what is going on in NASA, the ANC, Ford Kenya, ODM and Wiper, I may have a story to tell you. Anything that is in Jubilee, I don't know. We meet in the house.
You don't feel like, for example, probably members, your colleagues from Rift Valley, probably they came out to defend CS Rotich?
Definitely, that's one of the things I was talking about. When I was just saying blanketly that, you know, as national leaders, we should rise up to the occasion. We should graduate from our cocoons and regions, whereby we take up national issues at heart.
So it is a fact that it became regional.
It may contribute a percentage.
Yes. Wow. And just like that, that report that has been worked on for weeks with regard to your sugar, the sugar that you consume, was thrown out, and that leaves us helpless. Where do we go from here? Now that Parliament has thrown out this report, what next? How can you even restart this debate?
Take sugar and take more sugar, Fred. You're not taking sugar.
I'm having water this morning because I'm still concerned. I was hoping to get some clarity from Parliament. Clearly, there's none.
And you know what
the question is, where do we go from here?
You know, one of the most sad thing is that when I walked out of Parliament yesterday in rage, one of the members of Parliament from another region shouted and said, "Bishop, ambia watu wako wapande mapera." That really killed me.
You stop the sugar.
I almost punked him.
Wow.
I almost punked him in the name of the Lord.
Yes,
because I felt
it became an issue about regional politics. It became an issue about people from the sugar belt defending. But all these things played out. Which one do you think won? Is it the politics within Jubilee? Is it the lobbying inside Parliament where claims of bribery were? Is it the issue of maybe you don't have enough members from the sugar belt to defend your stand? What do you think won the day yesterday?
But okay.
Mercury, Mheshimiwa, go ahead.
Now I was going to say, Fred, remember this sugar issue does not just affect the sugar belt areas. It could affect the sugar belt areas in terms of livelihood, you know, but in terms of health, everybody takes sugar. And you cannot say that in your area, contaminated sugar won't find its way, you know? So the sugar, we buy sugar, we visit different areas, and we still drink tea with sugar, whatever. So everybody is at risk. It's not just the sugar belt
So
area.
which one do you think won the day yesterday? Is it the lobbying within Parliament? Is it the Jubilee politics? Or was it the fact that probably there were not enough members from the sugar belt?
Now, for me, I think it was the lobbying.
Yes.
I think it was the lobbying.
These claims of bribery could have...
I don't know if lobbying included bribery,
yes,
because lobbying does not necessarily have to include bribery, but I know that the lobbying took the center stage.
Fred, I agree with Mheshimiwa. I agree with Mama County from Kisumu that lobbying was at the center stage. I didn't see any money, but since I'm a spiritual man,
yes,
I could smell money.
I
could just smell it. I never saw it, but I could smell
and
it was hovering somewhere.
And this screaming headline on the Standard this morning, bribery claims as MPs rescue Rotich and Aidan, and the amounts have been mentioned on page 6 of the Standard.
I don't even know.
20,000 shillings, 30,000 shillings. These are members of the National
Fred,
Assembly.
why are you dwelling so much on that? You sound like you'd...
Honorable members of the National Assembly receiving 10,000 shillings. They earn as much as 1.2 million shillings a month. 10,000 shillings to actually shoot down a report that was very key to your daily life.
You cannot confirm that, and you cannot prove that. I've told
These
you...
are the claims on the dailies.
I was in that house. I didn't smell and I didn't see. But what I know is...
At least one member of this parliament smells.
He smells. Probably was smelling money in his pocket. I don't know.
Well, Daybreak takes a break. When we come back, we move on to other headlines. 4,000 buildings still earmarked for demolition. NEMA, the Director General, sat with Wahiga Mwaura this week right here on the same table and said, yes, we are still demolishing buildings. Yesterday, another officer from that agency said NEMA has nothing to do with those demolitions. These are live pictures on your screen right now in Westlands, UK Mall, being demolished as we speak. So the demolition is going on, but NEMA says we have nothing to do with that. And this is one officer from the National Environmental Management Authority. Who's fooling who? President Uhuru Kenyatta said any official who may have issued licenses illegally will also have to face the law. Live pictures from Westlands, courtesy of Daybreak.